What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Master and Apprentice video and podcast. As you can see, there's no Master with me, Padawan gone rogue. All jokes aside, today's video we are going to be talking about Star Wars video games, and specifically what has been going on with them recently. Star Wars has been making video games since 1983 with Star Wars Jedi Arena on the Atari. Recently they came out with Star Wars Hunters on mobile, and now it's available on PC as well, and Star Wars Outlaws on both PC and console, neither of which are a large success. But if Star Wars has been making video games for 40 plus years now, why are they having problems at this point in time? Why don't they have a successful formula down? These games are often made by EA, which has a great formula for generating money and sales for games that they keep re-releasing like Madden all the time. One of the first steps to understanding why these games failed is to understand and look at the numbers on exactly how much they failed. So 3 of the biggest Star Wars games in the past 10 years are Battlefront, Battlefront 2, and Jedi Fallen Order. These metrics are going off of copies of the game sold 2 months after the release date of the game. Battlefront takes the cake, first place, 2 months after release, 12 million copies are sold. That's great. Second place is Battlefront 2 with 9 million copies sold. Third place is Jedi Fallen Order with 8 million copies sold. So that's a metric for what this game should be getting. Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars Outlaws are very similar games when you think about them. Similar style games, I should say. Not necessarily similar plot-wise or anything else, but they are both a single-player story mode game. Star Wars Outlaws, now that it's been 2 months after release, the official number is under 2 million copies sold. You heard that right. Less than 20% of the 2015 game Battlefront. That's it? It feels like nothing. Such a hyped up big game that Ubisoft is so excited about. Why did this falter? A little disclaimer before we go on to why these games, Star Wars Outlaws and Star Wars Hunters, didn't do well. And we're going to be focusing mostly on Star Wars Outlaws. I am the main reason Star Wars Outlaws didn't do well. I did not purchase the game myself. I've not played it myself. I'm the complete and major fault. That being said, I do not have any playing experience on this game. So all I've seen are trailers, other people's reviews, all these different things, clips from the games, but I personally have not played it myself. So if I get something wrong, a few details here and there, I'm part of the metric. I'm part of the reason that they didn't get more than 2 million sales in 2 months. Because I personally didn't buy the game either, for reasons that we're going to go over later. The 2 recent Battlefront games are high up on that list on copies sold, but following them is Jedi Fallen Order, which is an extremely different game. Battlefront 2 allows you to play as some of the most popular characters in Star Wars, as well as some new ones like Iden Versio, and on top of that, it has a nostalgic factor. Jedi Fallen Order? None of that. A completely new character, and the game is 100% single player and focused around storytelling. Why would those 2 very different games with very different play styles have such similar success, while Star Wars Outlaws, which is very similar to Jedi Fallen Order as I mentioned, share none of its success? A large reason that Jedi Fallen Order did so much better than Star Wars Outlaws is because of fan service. What do fans want? Fans want Star Wars and a Star Wars game. Now let's go over some things that these games are very, very similar to it, so you can see where I'm coming from when I say these. Both these games, you're going off of a new, unestablished character, and you're making them your own. You take this character, you play with them, and you're learning about them as you play the game. Both of these games are single-player mode only, and both of these games are story-oriented. Both these games are also set during the reign of the Empire, where we see Star Wars start, where a Star Destroyer comes in from the movie A New Hope, and they're the reigning power in the galaxy, and they're the big bad guys. So we have the same general antagonist in both of these. Fallen Order doesn't really have any known characters at all in it, and Star Wars Outlaws pretty much doesn't have very much any known characters in it. It has Darth Vader in some scenes, and it has Jabba the Hutt under a paywall, which we'll get to in a moment. But the main thing is, no one's buying Star Wars Outlaws to go see those 10 scenes with Darth Vader, as far as I'm aware. There's some people that do it, but since less than 2 million people have bought the game in general, I'm sure very few of those people actually are so excited for those couple scenes with Darth Vader. I think it's cool. I think it's exciting. I've watched the scenes. They look awesome. but that's not the focal point of the game. And the thing that really sets these two games apart is who you play as. In Jedi Fallen Order, you play a Jedi hiding from the Empire, trying to learn the ways of the Force at the same time. In Outlaws, you play a random outlaw living in the galaxy trying to make their way. Star Wars has always been about Jedi, Sith, the Force, and Star Wars Outlaws really has a lot less of that than the average Star Wars gamer wants to see. You're playing Star Wars, you want that Star Wars feel, right? You got a lot of aliens in there as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm seeing. You got a lot of these weird creatures, but honestly, from clips I've seen, from people streaming it, it looks a lot more like a space Red Dead Redemption 2 than it does a Star Wars campaign, because you're not taking part in the Force yourself. You're not sitting there using a lightsaber, and you don't have to use a lightsaber necessarily for it to be a successful Star Wars game, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt. The laser swords, lightsabers have been such a cool aspect of Star Wars for such a long time, and iconic at that. Not using such an iconic weapon in a game this size is kind of a letdown. The top 3 games sold for Star Wars are Battlefront 1, 2, and Fallen Order. 2 of the games, you're playing as the most iconic characters in Star Wars, as we went over. Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker can go against each other. That's just cool to see. Again, Battlefront 2, and those are some later updates in the game, but that's just such a cool thing in general just to have. But Fallen Order, you don't play as an irrelevant Jedi. You play as yourself. You are Cal Kestis. You are immersed fully in him. And as I'm sure the people playing Star Wars Outlaws are very immersed in Kay Vess, you're not immersed in a Force wielder. You're not immersed in a Star Wars character. It feels like you're immersed in your own character in a Star Wars universe, and it's not the Star Wars feel you want from this game. What makes money in Star Wars? Star Wars. In my opinion, this is the biggest reason the last 2 games, Star Wars Hunters and Star Wars Outlaws, didn't really have much success, because they didn't feel like Star Wars. Hunters is a mobile shooter game, so that's going to be an uphill battle just to make a good mobile shooter game, because you're going up against Call of Duty Mobile, making something completely new. It was never going to be easy for them, but on top of that, they don't use their iconic characters that they could be doing. I mean, if I can sit there while I'm waiting in line and play with Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker, yeah, I'm going to be doing that. That sounds awesome. Hunters did have some cool characters, like the fallen stormtrooper and the droid that thinks he's a Jedi, but those are not personal. So you're not having iconic characters, you're not having personal characters, you're just having random characters. Everything feels meaningless about the game. The people who play Star Wars and watch Star Wars for the story get nothing out of Star Wars Hunters, and the people that love shooter games are probably going to be going with the bigger shooter games on mobile, because I think mobile is the smallest platform for gaming, and the fact that it's on PC now is too little too late in my opinion. Outlaws, on the other hand, is a single character you play as, and you get to personalize them, and you get to make them your person, and that makes that a lot better, because you actually have some stake in the game, it feels like. But again, you're not officially a Force wielder, you're not a lightsaber user, you don't really have any of these cool Star Wars unique abilities. And then the one thing that would take these players and make them want to buy the game anyway is the familiarity with such a big character such as Jabba the Hutt is locked behind a $40 paywall. If I pay $70 for a game, I do not want to pay $40 for a paywall for the other half of the game. I don't care if it feels like it's 10%. Oh, it's just a tiny bit of the game. It's not a big deal. You pay $70 for a game. Anything more that you should pay should be cosmetic, not needed, not a part of the plot. I don't think that you should pay a dime to unlock the rest of the plot. You pay $70 on a single player game, that is the plot. Everything else is customizing your character, putting a Jack-in-the-Box head over your character, something goofy, something funny, but not necessary things to the game. And this paywall for Jabba made a lot of fans, like myself, not want to buy the game, or what feels like half a game at all. Now we'll get into some of the canceled or delayed indefinitely projects, one of which is Battlefront 3. Battlefront 2 was one of my favorite games. It had a cool plot with Iden Versio. It had an amazing multiplayer where I could play as all these cool characters, learn more about them, have fun with them. It was a great experience in my opinion, and I was excited whenever the rumors about Battlefront 3 rose, and I was hyped up for it. And then EA announced that they are abandoning Battlefront 3 and decided instead to make the very successful game Squadrons, which essentially is a third of Battlefront 2. There is a plot, all this, all that. Yeah, it's cool. There's different things that Squadrons brought in. I didn't play the game out of personal preference because it's a flight game. I'm not going to get completely hyped up into a flight game like that. I haven't before. I've played a couple here, and I've played a lot of the flight modes in Battlefront 2. But that leads me to the point where, me personally, I hated this decision as I loved Battlefront 2. Seeing it go for something that was just a fraction of Battlefront 2, because there was already that flying ship aspect, that dueling aspect with starships in Battlefront 2. Why did you have to take that and make it its own game instead of going ahead with the whole game and making Squadrons a part of the plot? My personal opinion, that's not objective right there, but that's what I thought of it. Another project that was delayed indefinitely was Star Wars 1313, originally announced in 2012, but some clips came out in 2020 kind of seeming like they were going to actually go through with the project possibly, and then it was back to delayed indefinitely / canceled. EA had a project they were working on up until the beginning of this year, untitled first-person shooter Star Wars game, which to me sounds like Battlefront again, but first-person, no third-person options. I was hyped. I was excited. February of this year, it was announced that they canceled that project, and the reason they gave to cancel the project was to work on more established games. Bottom line is, what has worked for Star Wars games in the past? Star Wars. Star Wars is about Jedi, Sith, the Force. And if you're doing a single-player game for Star Wars, you need to have that as the main focal point for the game. I.e., Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order. Right there is a game that has had 2 so far, a third announced, and it's based completely around Jedi. People are excited to see that. Cal Kestis is the player. You are immersed in that game. Everyone enjoys that. Everyone likes seeing that. Everyone likes playing that. It's a great game. You feel like you are playing the game as a Star Wars character. People play Outlaws, they feel like an outlaw. And if you do a multiplayer game, you got to have the iconic characters from the Star Wars saga. That's one thing that I think Star Wars sometimes does great and sometimes does not so great in both the movies, TV shows, and games is fan service. Sometimes people want to see this, and you give them exactly what they want, you're gonna make some money. So EA, Ubisoft, I don't care who makes the next Star Wars game, either make it focus around a certain character in the Force as a single player game, but if another multiplayer game comes out that I cannot play as Darth Vader or Anakin Skywalker or Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm gonna poop my pants. So that's all. Thank you guys for watching and hanging out with me. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think, how dumb I am, how stupid I am that Outlaws is actually the best game that's ever existed, and what I got wrong about that game. So I'd like to see your guys' opinions, your guys' thoughts. Hit that like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Hit that download and follow if you're on podcast, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.